Well, welcome back, everyone, to another edition of What Drives You. I am with one of our top hosts, co-hosts, Mr. Stan Windhorn. How you doing, Stan?
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of What Drives You. Carl, we've got a pretty fun guest on this episode. So why don't you tell us a little bit about our guest today?
Well, we've got Mr. Anthony Bartazzi, if I said that right. Um, and he is a friend through a friend, but I feel like a brother from another mother. So welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, a little background on Anthony. He is an amazing guy, and we'll get into how he survives in the place that he survives in, which we'll all be intrigued about. But he's an amazing dad of three boys. He's a realtor and he's got a brokerage in California, Southern California. So, any of our viewers happen to be buying or selling a house, Anthony's your guy. And in a twist of kind of coolness to the show, he is also an actor and has been in a bunch of cool projects, a lot of voiceover stuff. So, Anthony, I know you kind of moved at an early age to California, at least if my research is correct. So, tell us how'd you get to California to begin with?
Well, my family bought a house in Burbank, California, and my dad was a contractor and an engineer, so he traveled the world and worked abroad. So I was actually born in Kuwait, and I'm not a Kuwaiti citizen, but I was born in Kuwait because he was working there. And then we moved back to the States. He was working for a company in Northern California. So we moved back to Burbank, California. And from Burbank, I ended up in North Hollywood. My dad kind of went off on his own, and it was my mom, me, and my sisters at a very young age. So, you know, we grew up in North Hollywood pretty much in the Valley most of our lives. So that's how I ended up here in Southern California.
And then we've got a mutual friend, the three of us were just discussing, Mr. Kenneth Potter, who's a connector of folks. How did you, because there's a kind of a car business, which again is sort of a theme
Right.
here, connection. How did you meet up with Ken?
Well, I was working at carsdirect.com, and then Ken ended up moving over to carsdirect.com and taking over the sales force over there. And I was just lucky enough to connect with Ken, and he gave me some great opportunities in the car business. He really saw something in me and believed in me. And when I was just doing some basic sales at carsdirect.com, he sent me to finance school out in Northern California, which was funded through the company. He paid for the whole trip and brought me back and made me a finance manager. And shortly after that, promoted me to a sales manager. So I kind of held two titles within the company. And we became friends and started doing things outside of work, which was such a blessing. Ken's an angel. He's a great person, as you guys know, and very good friend. And the reason why I believe I am where I am today is because of the opportunity Ken gave me. Was a great platform for me to transition into the mortgage business and then open my brokerage and then continue to pursue my acting, my voiceover work, time with the family, and being there for my mom during the last years of her life. So it was, definitely a blessing. Ken's definitely a blessing. So I'm
Yeah.
thankful, for people like that in my life.
And he's a darn good cook.
I
Not a
see.
cook, he's a chef. He's like this. He loves to make things for people, and the only thing he asks in return is he wants to tell you what he put in there. I added a little bit of this and I did a little bit of that, but yeah, Kenny's a great cook. I'm curious, you and I have this in common, Anthony, is I've been a voiceover artist for many, many years and uh, have done some acting as well. I don't think my portfolio is nearly as good as yours, but how did you morph into that? Is that something that you always liked as a kid? I was always into it when I was a kid. So how did you kind of move into that realm?
into the voiceover work or into acting? It's kind of under the same
They're
umbrella, but
they're kind of the same.
kind of the same. Well, growing up in North Hollywood, being surrounded by a lot of artists and,
Yeah.
having the entertainment business there, really lit a fire in me. And I had a passion for it at an early age. So in middle school, I started doing theater. So I started, I think my first play was A Midsummer Night's Dream. I played
Oh,
Puck, and we did a festival, and then I did a theater play, and after the play, I had kids in school that I didn't even know, with their parents walking up to me in the auditorium saying, "Oh my gosh, my son saw the play at school," because I played it a little, different, quirky, and my son said we had to see it, so we wanted to tell you what a great job, and it just really that really touched me, and so I had a passion for it going into high school, and then I also had a passion for radio. And so not only did I, continue playing sports in high school and doing theater, I also pursued broadcasting. So another thing you guys don't know about me is I ended up working for, I don't know if you know Stan Pirate Radio, Scott Shannon.
oh yeah,
Okay, so
I
I
sure do.
was, yeah, so I ended up, completing, a broadcasting school, Columbia School of Broadcasting in Hollywood. And I took broadcasting classes at school, in college. So after that, I put a demo reel together and started sending it to different stations, and I got offered a production director position in Morro Bay at a small, I didn't realize what a small station it was.
Mm.
I drove up there about 4 hours. I didn't want to be there, so I came back to LA, and I started sending in my tapes. So I got a job at Pirate Radio. They were supposed to be broadcasting out of Catalina Island. Well,
Yeah.
there it was in an office on Cahuenga and Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood on the 11th floor. So
I
Scott,
remember when they first came out, that was sort of that was quite, they made a splash initially because they were supposed to be this pirate radio. In fact, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy by the name of Neil Jenkins.
Neil
Uh,
Jenkins.
he was in sales and still is. I think he's with MTV and uh, anyway, I just remember we went somewhere and we had to. He gave us a bunch of pirate radio bumper stickers that he
Bite
wanted
me
us to put out
stickers.
there. That they had the coolest bumper sticker.
Oh yeah. I used to drive. So when I got the job there, I started answering phones. And then from the answering phones, there was Gnarly Charlie and Bubba the Love Glove, who would go out in the pirate van, and they'd get on the radio, and Gnarly Charlie, they're, rocker guys, right? And
Yeah.
the whole tone of the station was, "Hello everybody, it's so and so calling in from here and here, come on out, party with the pigs." So anyways, it was exciting, and Gnarly Charlie was out one day, and Bubba the Love Sponge was out, and who was it, there was one of the broadcasters, I forget his name, he was on the air, and no one had to go out in the van. I take the van out sometimes, different promotions. Well, they took it out, and that was the first time I was on the air. So I went to the Surfer Dude statue out in Huntington Beach, and I got on the air, and we were giving out stuff, and it's like, "Hello everybody, it's Bubba the Love Sponge," and what Love Glove was his name. And so I did his insert, "We're out here kicking out the Surfer Dude statue in Huntington Beach. Come on out, party with the pigs from the Pirates." So I got on the air. That was the first time I was on the air. People would
Mm.
come and give free stuff out in the van. We'd always have um, private concerts with Danger Danger, um, all these rock bands, and
Yeah.
I'd be backstage, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So that's how
S-
I got my start in the radio business.
So was that before? I mean, I know you said you did some school plays and things like that. I did that all the way. Gosh, I think I was in grade school when I first started doing plays, and then all through college. But was the radio before you really started acting, or did they kind of happen simultaneously?
Simultaneously, the acting came about. I ended up, having an agent, and started going out on some auditions, and I started to get lucky with some parts here and there. And then after that, it wasn't easy getting into the on camera,
Yeah.
but I started to get a little part here, a little part there, and then I did a part on the West Wing, and then Days of Our Lives, and then things started to kick off. And before that, I was in the Three Kings with George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, and Ice Cube, and
Hmm.
did some movies here and there. But
Weren't
yeah,
you a bad guy in that one?
I was a bad guy. I was the guy who, yeah, I was an interrogation sergeant. So I had a scene
See,
with George
it's
Clooney.
so funny talking with you right now. Just, well, that's what acting is supposed to be, right? You were
Yeah,
acting like a bad guy when you're
right.
obviously a really good guy. You know, I've made this joke a million times, that I wanted to be an actor. And then I realized very quickly that I liked having a roof over my head and having food to eat. So I kind of went about it a little bit different. I always made my living in a different way, but was fortunate enough to I had a little TV show for about 10 years, just a local thing, and the medieval times and the voiceover stuff. But I felt very fortunate that I was able to get the gigs that I got and kind of fill that creative Jones. So when you were doing it, were you going full time, or were you trying to make your living in other ways and just getting the gigs when you could?
I was just like you, trying to make, a living doing it and getting the gigs when I could. Obviously, the goal was to just pursue acting full time. Um, so I started doing the voiceover work as well. An opportunity came up. I don't know if you remember American Pie 2. Remember
Yeah,
American
the
Pie 2?
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when Heather and Oz were having phone sex, that one scene? And, you
Okay.
know, and they're on the phone and he's like, I got a call waiting. It's one of the funniest scenes in the movie. And then he puts Heather on hold and he goes out to the other line and it's me. It's like, hello, marhaba, Khalid Turajman. He's like, who is this? And then he's like, look, man, I'm trying to have sex with my aunt. I'm like, very good, man. Allahu Akbar, So I do different character voices. I do Middle Eastern,
Yeah.
Italian, I do it all. So that was the first time I did voiceover work. As a matter of fact, I just, in Bad Guys 2 for DreamWorks, I just did some ancillary voices. That's coming out, I think, next month. It's BD2. I was lucky enough to do a couple of voiceovers in some of the characters, so I was able to voice them. So I just did that. They just sent me the contract. So,
That was
well,
one of the things that I missed. I mean, I had my fair share of voiceover gigs back in the day. Um, Never landed a national commercial, which, that can be a heck of a payday. And I never really got to do animation. And I, like you, I do a lot of different character voices and things like that. But I wish I would have had the opportunity to do some more of that character kind of
yeah.
things. Nowadays with animation, a lot of times it's, big name actors that are getting those roles now too.
Yeah. And it's not an easy business to break into. There's a lot of nepotism like everything else. Like if we have a good friend and family, right? And I think that's where the struggle is with a lot of it. I mean, if you're producing a movie, right? And there's a lot at stake and forget about the big name attached to it, right? You have some roles here and there. And you have a family member who or a friend who's actually, pursuing the business, and you think they're good at it. You're going to offer them the job over someone
Sure.
else, right? I mean, 90% of the time, that's how it works, and with any business. So, that's where the struggle is. But then you have your niche, your niche. Mine was, doing a lot of the Middle Eastern stuff, or the
Mhm.
Italian stuff, uh, or the mobster stuff. So, you get in for those opportunities. I was lucky enough to do a rolled gold pretzel for E-Trade, a national commercial for Super Bowl 2000. I
Oh,
booked
great.
that. They flew me to New York. I was at the Silver Cup Studios in New York. We stayed in Manhattan. We filmed in Rye, New York, and so that was kind of cool. It never aired, even though we did it. It never aired because it was very controversial. Again, it was the Saddam Hussein thing, right? During the
Uh,
time. So that never aired. I was no, that was for E-Trade. And then I did another one for the Olympics, rolled gold pretzel commercial. That one aired with Jason Alexander. So,
mm,
it was here and there. I'd get these things, but it was never enough to actually make a living, right? So,
yeah.
and that's where the struggle is. And growing up, with my dad leaving at an early age, I watched my mom work two jobs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, and then from 10 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. So my motivation and what really, I think what drives you in life, you go through there's different things that drive you depending on what age you're at or where you're at in life, right? At a young
Sure.
age, what really motivated me was, hey, I wanted to be successful and give back to my mom, who was giving to us and did so many wonderful things and just was there for us. Um, then obviously in my teenage life, I the passion for acting, and then your friends around you, and then the boy meets girl kind of thing, right? You're motivated for that. So I started doing the theater and just wanting to work and make money and being successful and seeing so many, you being in Hollywood as well, Stan, you see actors, you see money, nice cars. I mean, that's motivating, right? And then the
Yeah.
opportunity. So I pursued that opportunity. I went to North Hollywood High School. A lot of actors came out of North Hollywood. So I got to connect with a few of them. And one of the people I'd walk home with was Cuba Gooding Jr. He lived on Riverside in Lancashire in an apartment. His dad wasn't around. It was his mom and no furniture. We'd walk to my apartment, we'd eat something, whatever, walk to his house and drive him to his auditions, or, he'd take a bike, or we'd try to, whatever, one of our friends would drive him who had a car in high school. So we started hanging around each other. And then I don't know if you know the name Lance Wilson White. He was in the car business
Mm.
for a while as well. He was on a TV show called, he got it while we were in high school, We Got It Made, with Terry Copley. He was the young blonde kid. Okay.
I don't
So
remember that one.
yeah, so he was in our group, and there was a bunch of actors, and we were motivated, and we
Yeah.
kind of helped each other. So that's where the opportunities arose from. And
The people ask me a lot about voiceovers and how you get into that thing. And I always say it's a great gig when you can get it, but it's very similar to the acting world. You have this upper echelon, a very small, relatively small group of people who are driving the cars and living in the mansions, and they've really made it to that upper pinnacle. And then there's probably a bigger group that maybe you and I kind of fit in, where we get our gigs here and there, and we got to fill at Creative Jones, and it was nice extra money and things like that. And then there's an even bigger group of people who want to do these things, but just didn't either have the connections or get the breaks or whatever it was. Um, I think
or
that's
have
true
the
in
time,
the voiceover business too.
yeah, or have the time to pursue it 100%, because they have to
Yeah.
get work. And I was the one who always had to work as well, right? So I tried to be as flexible as I can, and that's when I started in the car business. My sister married a guy from Michigan, right? Whose dad worked for Ford all of his life. The only job he had, retired for Ford, started with Ford. So he came out to here, and they met, and he got into the car business, and he was working at a place called Westway Lincoln Mercury in North Hills. Do you remember that place? It's now part
Mm,
of Galpin Ford. Brian
Hmm.
Allen is still there, but I don't
okay.
know if you know the name Brian Allen, but he's still there. He was one of the desk managers, and so was my brother-in-law. So he brought me on, and then another guy named Derek Brose. and Derek was also one of Cuba's best friends. And this guy is like a genius. And he ended up being an executive for Sony and so savvy with technology before it even became mainstream that he was able to market Cuba and manage him. And so Derek and I got a job there. Derek blew out of there really, quicker than I did. But that's how I got my start in the car business, just trying to make quick money. A desk man was making 25,000 a month,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, wow. So that's how I started in the car business. I always tried to have the flexibility. And then when I went to work for Cars Direct, that was through Lance, who also was in the entertainment business. And he got me connected into there. And then I couldn't really audition, but Ken Potter was an amazing person and very supportive, and really gave me, when I had some opportunities, he kind of let me slide out and take those opportunities and come back on the down low. I don't know why I should be saying this stuff, but
I don't think either one of you are going to get in trouble for that
no, right,
anymore. Yeah,
by all means.
Ken was supposed to be here on this podcast. We're talking about him so much now. I'm going to really make him feel guilty for not showing up.
Yeah,
Well,
he's here.
he's here in spirit, and
That's what I was going to say.
yeah, he's definitely a connector. Anthony, do you think it helps? What I got one bone to pick with you, and on a wink, wink. Because Ken always says whenever he talks about you that you are the nicest person in the world, and I get offended because I'm like, I thought I was the nicest person in the world, and you're always ahead of me. He's like, well, you're kind of right there with him, but so the I'm joking, by the way, but the tease is, how does a nice guy who's carrying a load of a full-time job, how do you even make it work? Does it give you confidence? Like, hey, I don't need this gig. If I don't make this audition, I'm good. I got a paycheck because I'm doing it on my own. Or does it make it harder? I'm curious as to, like, could a regular Joe, like you are, an amazing dad and a hardworking guy, is there even a place for you in Hollywood? Or is it just like Stan said earlier, just fills the creative Joneses for you because you're like, I'll get one every quarter and that's good enough for me? How does that work?
Well, that's a great question, and there's a lot of different answers for that. So my passion is acting. If I could drop everything else and do acting 100% of the time, I would, right? I obviously can't afford to do that. I have 3 boys. I'm a single dad. I have expenses, and you know how that goes. So the answer to your question is, okay, so I was recently up for a big David Mamet. Do you know who David Mamet is, Stan?
Yep.
Heard the
Okay.
name, yeah.
The Untouchables, Glenn Gary, Glenn
Yeah,
Ross. So
director, right?
yeah, writer, playwright.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
Oleana does a lot of, like, writes for a lot of theater and stuff. Well, he wrote this film, and a director that I recently, a year ago, did something for. The breakdown came out, and he texted me. He said, "I think you're perfect. I'm thinking about you for this role." And it's going to come out. It's about, Biden's son and just the whole thing. It's coming out. They delayed it till the end of the year, but there was a nice role in there for me. And I was even at the director's house, and I thought for sure I was going to have it, and it's really excited. And this would have been a breakout, a role. It's called The Prince 2025. So if you look it up right now, you'll see, like, the top of the top actors are in this,
Okay.
right? I didn't get it. I don't know if it was politics or what. As much as the director knew me, and we did a film together called David and Fatima, and he played David, and it's a modern day Romeo and Juliet set in Jerusalem. And Tony Curtis had a cameo in it. It was his last film before he passed.
Hmm.
Rabbi Shmulek was, gosh, I forget his name. He's another big actor. but anyways, he knows me, and I thought for sure I had this, and this is his big directorial debut, right? He's done some other films, but I didn't get it. Broke my heart. But I guess to answer your question is, I have to work, right? So I do, like, for example, I have two multi-million-dollar listings right now. One of them's in escrow. I got another one coming up. I got to review documents. I have an audition with the directors for another film on Wednesday that it's a Zoom. I got this breakdown and audition 2 days ago. I haven't looked at it. So I do want to look at it, and I do want to do well, and I do want to get the part for this film. I just have other obligations. So it's not like, if I get it, I get it. I don't, I don't. I do put a lot into it, and I sacrifice having a relationship one-on-one, like a significant other. Last night I slept at 2:30 in the morning, and I woke up at 6 a.m., right? So I sacrifice a lot to be able to have these opportunities. But let's say I wasn't working and I had, $1 million in the bank, and I get this film, and I shut everything off and I just focus, right? I get with my coach and we work on it, and everything's great, and I give 100% and they love me, right? Maybe I get it. Maybe because I can't put 100% into it, I don't get this role, right? Because I'm just going to look at it when I can, because I have obligations that are first and foremost. Does it mean I'm not passionate and I don't want it? No, it's just like everybody else. We have to work and make money, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that. But I guess,
how do you deal with that heartbreak? I mean, you're this close, you've got the connections, which is a big part of it. It's a lot of what, like you kind of alluded to, it's kind of who you know, in a lot of cases, or at least who knows you, that knows that you can do this part or this voiceover role or whatever the case may be. But how do you deal with when you're that close to something that could have been a breakout, and for whatever reason, and who knows, it might have been some executive in the studio who knows nothing about anything who said, nope, that's not the guy. We need this other guy, whatever.
well, it's heartbreaking, and I've been thinking about this every day since I didn't get it, and it's
Yeah.
been, what, 3 months now, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it. Can't wait till it comes out so I could see it and see what I missed. Um, I there's been a lot of roles I read for. I've had a lot of opportunities, and if I capitalized on just a couple of the big ones, I mean, I was in The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx, but sometimes your role gets cut out, right? Your role gets cut out. You're still there, Anthony Batarse, Inner Circle, but you're in Arizona for a month with Jamie Foxx, Jennifer Garner, Jason Bateman. You're in the cars in the van going to film with them, but they keep a lot of they film sometimes more than they don't, they need, and then they chop it up.
Sure.
That's heartbreaking as well.
You end up on the cutting room floor, is the
Yeah,
old cliche.
but I've read for Get Shorty, the mafia comedy. I mean, a lot of these big films. I've had directors. I've gone to Universal, and the director would be like, Anthony, I think you're perfect. The casting director, I think you're perfect for the role, but I'm afraid if I give it to you, you're not going to have the same emotion as you do right now. Can you believe that? So, and you work so hard. I mean, and that's when I would. Okay, so when I left Cars Direct, I had a plan. I left Cars Direct. I transitioned out of there because I wanted to pursue the acting. I was making good money at Cars Direct as well, but there were other things. But mainly, I wanted to pursue the acting, and I wanted the flexibility and to be with the kids. And I didn't want to be in traffic for 4 hours. As much as I loved Ken Potter, I didn't want to drive from Culver City to Valencia on the 405. I mean, Ken and I, we talk about, like, oh, we're going to make a movie about the 405. We've spent so much time on it. I calculated how much time I spent on that 405, right? If I calculated a day as being 10 hours in the 4 years that I was at Cars Direct, I spent 10 months on that freeway, right? So 10 months of your life. So I wanted to transition out of there. I put a plan together, and I wanted the flexibility, the freedom. The twins were just born. I wanted to spend more time with them. So I took a risk. I put a plan together. I got my real estate license. And because Ken saw something in me, right, when I was there, and gave me that opportunity to learn finance. And then I was doing finance in 48 different states. I was doing loans. I was, booking deals, whatever. I had the confidence and I was empowered to take that risk. So I'd bought my first condo. I bought my first condo when I was at Cars Direct, and then I just refinanced it, and I pulled some money out, and I said, I'm doing this, and I did it, and I took a risk, and it was a wonderful thing, because now I've literally worked on so many shows, like the SEAL Team. I did 6, 7 seasons of the SEAL Team voiceover work, where I go into the studio and we do like a lot of episodes. There was another show, I forget what it was called. Anyway, I did like 3 seasons on that. I got to work on Chicago PD. I got to work on so many big films, even though it's not on camera, it was off camera, right? But I've already earned a pension from doing that. If you calculate everything I've made in voiceover work, it's got to be at least $500,000, right? Over this time with residuals. I mean, things have changed. The platform's changed, right? Now with streaming, the residuals are not there. The whole platform's changed. You can do movies vertically, horizontally. They don't have to be traditional 1 hour or 2 hour movies or half-hour episodics. There's so many platforms in streaming. So and the content now is coming from all over the world. So things have changed. And I've come up with a concept, and I bought tvandfilmcasting.com. And I'm putting together, I started the DBA, I did the fictitious and everything, a platform where I could start producing, right? And I'm doing it in a way, and maybe I shouldn't talk about it too much, where it's a career development site where I can now get different people, writers, directors, and get them together to produce union films to further their career. It's almost like a career development, but you're producing stuff, right? And you can get funding from the state for that, the way I'm putting it together. So I have to have time to put that together. But because things are changing, you adapt with it, and you want to kind of, be able to get opportunities. So that's where I'm at as far as that. And I still keep my options open.
Do you think, Anthony, and Stan and I talk about this all the time in other parts of our lives, right? Is there any truth for you and in Hollywood, nice guys finish last? Because a lot of times I feel like, and I tease Stan about this all the time, he's so kind to so many people with his crafts and his art. He's very talented. Stan is with carpentry stuff, and he just helps these people, and it doesn't seem to pay off. Is that a similar thing in Hollywood, where, because Ken is right, you are one of the nicest guys in the world. Is that for you or against you in Hollywood?
I think, it works for you in a sense where, people are like, so there's a lot of politics, you have to post jobs in California, right? If there's a job, I think technically you have to post that job. So it's a lot of, maybe nice guys finish last, right? But in Hollywood, you have to post a gig. You might have, now with digital auditions, you might have a bunch of people auditioning. Sure, let's give them this audition. I mean, a lot of times, I don't know if I'm auditioning and I'm doing a video audition and I'm sending it in. They already may have someone cast, right? They may be thinking of someone, but put it out there just in case. And that happens a lot in Hollywood. It's not necessarily Nice Guys finished last, it's more of, you know, nepotism, right?
Yeah.
Connections, business, politics. So they may already, okay, so casting directors, for example, casting directors, they go to casting director workshops, right? People go and pay them to show them who they are, what they do. I mean, so they're getting paid for that. I don't know as much now these days, but they were doing a lot of casting director workshops. So you go pay to be in a casting director workshop. That casting director is going to see, oh, you know what? He's perfect for this, but we're going to do the breakdown. And he always goes to my workshops and and they benefit from that, right? But he might be perfect for it, right? Or, you know what? My son's friend is, pursuing this and I think he's right for this, but they still might have you audition, and these poor actors are spending their time, money, resources, getting acting coaches to really give the best. And sometimes they don't even look at it, right? And that's just unfortunate. And, you know, and I don't think it's about being nice or not, but if you're nice, you go in, they'll think about bringing you in again, right? So I think nice guys have opportunities. I don't think nice guys. Now in the car business, I think nice guys finish last a lot of times because it's a cutthroat business, right?
Yeah, for sure.
My experience a lot in the entertainment is I don't know about if nice guys finish first or last, but you tend to get gigs because of people that you know or have met, and that's why you see a lot of people, like there's groups of people that you see them in all the same movies together. It's because they know they like working with each other.
Exactly.
So if they like working with you and they know you can pull the gig off, then why not have you in that role?
And like voiceover, a lot of times I don't audition for these voiceovers. Hey, they call me, you available? We'll be at the sound studio in Warner Brothers this day. Yeah, absolutely. And they might start calling you for, more and more, so you're right. It is, you develop groups, people, and you see a lot of the same people in the same movies.
I think you're really onto something though, Anthony, with that website idea, because being in control, like you look at some of the people who've come out of nowhere and made it in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to Stallone. He wrote Rocky. He started, like he said, that you got to pick me, or you ain't getting this movie. So I think there's a lot of that: writing, directing, producing, starring in it. Then you're in control of it because it's your idea, right? If the story is your idea, you've got a little bit more control. And so I think you being a producer of it, you got a lot more control, right? Because now you're saying, all right, I'll get the money. I'll help choose the actors and actresses. And by the way, there's a small little part over here for good old Anthony or Stan or Ken, you know what I mean? So that control is intriguing to me, which is kind of ties back to what Stan and I are doing, and the group of us on this podcast is we're just we want to encourage and educate and entertain people. That's the core of this thing. But we're also trying to be out there and getting a little bit of recognition so that our other projects, the documentary that you know about, some of the other stuff that Stan and I have talked about, is just getting a little bit of credibility. And even though these our podcasts are somewhat primitive and simple and all that, we're learning so much. We're getting people's stories out there. This gal from last night telling her story, which is unfortunately tragic as a parent, but helping others. I think nice guys can't finish last, but when you help others first and foremost, I believe that always comes back to you.
It really does. And with this TV and film casting, and I bought film and TV castings, I bought it plural, I bought it in every which way. The great thing about it is before, Hollywood used to be controlled by the big studios, right? Now the whole platform has changed, and that's the problem right now. So we have an opportunity now with technology. I mean, there's stuff I see that's shot on iPhone that's been edited. I was just so I did a movie. I saw this one director. I was just in Maui with the kids, and I connected with this director he asked me to be in a film. It was called Lift. and it was a comedy, Lyft, Lyft, and I know him, right? I know the guy, and he said, "I'm shooting a film. Can you do this part? It's kind of like a funny part." I said, "Send me the script." He sent it. I said, "It's funny. I love it." When I went there, he shot it on his iPhone, right? He shot it on his iPhone. The sound when we were doing the car scene, the the sound thing was like it was just unbelievable. I'm like, okay, I'm wondering which direction this is going to go in, right? It was on Prime.
Wow.
Looked great. He sold the film and it's on a streaming platform. Okay. So my point is and look, let's say you put some content, you do a documentary, you do a movie, you do whatever, right? You want to do it, but on this platform, you get people, maybe they want to do a thesis film, or you get someone who wants to develop their career and start doing lighting. So you get all these people together, and for very cheap, everyone gets to do a union project, right? We do it under SAG guidelines that now they're in a project, right? They did an acting gig or they did whatever. And because it's a career development site, I'm doing it like that, we can get funding from the state as a
Yeah.
school type of project, right? For career development. So,
Oh, I
and
like
I know directors, I mean, and because I have so much like already established with like directors or with actors or with the actor studio or I have these people that I can attach to it automatically. So it's going to attract people wanting to come in and start developing their careers. It's just a matter of time and
Yeah.
really getting it
Well,
started.
think about this. We're gonna whether this is 45 minutes to an hour, and again, thank you so much for your time. I just know
Oh
you're
no,
so
my
busy,
pleasure.
but we're gonna do this. I'm gonna get a couple thumbnails. This thing will be out on YouTube probably later tonight with zero editing, a thumbnail, a little description, title, whatever that all I do, and it's on YouTube that has 120 million users a day. Where's our cost in this? Now, we're not making any money on this yet, but it's that practice and learning and that distribution. When could you do, I mean, think about back in the days, you shot a movie and you were editing for another year or two. Like by the time they were doing the press tour, the actors forgot like what the heck the movie was.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I shot that 5 years ago, right? It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Well, the technology is so nuts. When I was doing my TV show a zillion years ago, uh, what was the size? 3/4 inch tape, I think. But the
Oh yeah.
cameras were these big cameras, and they cost maybe $30,000.
Right.
And now, as you just said, Anthony, I shoot a lot of stuff now on my phone too because the cameras on the phones are so great now
Right.
that technology has certainly helped those that kind of have the creative, not just the creative bug, but the tools are now available to the masses, but it really doesn't mean that everybody can still make something that's
Right.
compelling. You
Right.
still got to
Yeah.
have
You
that
still gotta
those
have that
gifts.
talent. What TV show was it, Stan?
It was just a little show in South Orange County. I was on Channel 3, everything Irvine south to San Clemente. So it got, I'd shoot the show usually once a week, maybe twice, or once every other week, but then it would play pretty much every day on Channel 3. So, it got some views just because of its placement on the dial back then. And it opened up a lot of doors for me, and I got to meet a lot of people and do a lot of fun stuff. So I enjoyed it. Most of the time, I was just kind of making fun of myself. And, if the
That's
circus
awesome.
would come to town, I'd go do a piece on that. In fact, I interviewed the very first Cirque du Soleil. It was called Saltimbanco. They came to town, and I did a piece on Cirque du Soleil, which nobody had even heard of at that time. And I actually got to meet the guy and interview the guy who started it all.
Oh, that's
So there
amazing.
was just a lot of little things like that. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, well, we gotta put a project together soon and do something, right?
Yeah, I would love to do some sort of a voiceover project, get some of these character voices going. Be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what? Go on.
we've got a bunch of ideas, Anthony. I know we keep talking about getting to Vegas, but maybe Stan and I just got to come out by you since you're the busiest with the parenting and all that. But yeah, we've got some cool ideas, and we've shared with Ken, so that's definitely in the works. I want to take a little different spin since I got, again, two guys who've lived this for many years. So you both have met, and this won't be a name dropping thing necessarily, but who's the nicest celebrity you've met or worked with? And I'll say this very politically correct. Who's the most disappointing one that you've met or worked with? Because I know a couple of Stans, but go ahead, Anthony. Who's the most? And I know he's your boy, Cuba Gooding, so we'll put him off the side. He's a special category.
Yeah. No, we'll forget about Cuba right now. Mark Wahlberg is amazing. I met him on the set of The Three Kings, and I've run into him after that at various locations. But the moment I met Mark he's just really cool, laid back. We were doing this one scene, and after the scene, he got the quads because we're in Arizona. We're actually in Casa Grande, Arizona, and it was far out there, not a lot going on. It's, drive to Phoenix is about an hour, but we were out there, and after the scene pulled up, he's like, hop on the back of the quad. He goes over to his trailer. We walk in, we're talking, we've been talking the whole talking and having a good time. He's telling me about his now wife, and she was going to college, but he is the nicest guy, really nice. And being on the set with someone for about a month and getting to know them, that was pretty cool. George Clooney's awesome. We'd have dinner, right? And so intimate, again, not a lot going on in Casa Grande. We're all staying in the same place. And my girlfriend at the time flew in, and it was me, George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, Spike Jonze, just a bunch of us hanging out. We're getting hammered. And then George Clooney's there. And then my girlfriend's like talking to him. And then all of a sudden she's on his lap, right? And we're just having a good time, right? It was
You
pretty
know
cool.
better than to bring your girlfriend around,
Right.
George. Come on.
And then, and I got a picture, actually, I put it online. I don't know if I should. We're kind of hammered, me, Mark Wahlberg, and Spike Jonze. And I think it might be on IMDb, that picture. And it was just a classic, but he's really cool. I don't know who I've had good experiences with a lot of the people. So I don't know if I had a bad experience with an actor. Jamie Foxx, I mean, he's cool. I actually ran into him in Vegas, and yeah, he was pretty cool. It was at a club. It was a day club, and he was there with a few people. And he said hi. He's really nice. Jamie Foxx is really nice. Jason Bateman.
One of my scripts, Anthony, that this is an old one. I don't understand if I've let you even read it yet. It's with Jim Carrey and Jamie Foxx, and I wrote it. It's called The Idea Man, and it's so intricate. No one, I'm not afraid to share it. But I wrote it in such a way that the roles can be flip-flopped. So I was kind of like, has there ever been a movie made where you shoot it both ways? It's about a homeless person and a celebrity, and I can flip-flop them, and I can do the whole. So my idea was this. Okay, Hollywood brothers, tell me what you think of this. That no matter what theater you wouldn't know if you were walking in that Jamie Foxx is the homeless person or if Jim Carrey was the homeless person, but it was the exact same script. They were just flip-flopped.
Interesting concept, yeah.
Because you could shoot it for the same price, right? I mean, I don't know if you'd have to pay him twice. I don't know what SAG rules, but
there's a couple. I mean, Clue. There was a movie Clue after the board game that had, depending on what theater you went into, there was a different ending.
Yeah,
but I don't know that anybody's ever done exactly what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's it's a great idea.
Well, it's good, and that, again, not my show. It's more about I'm encouraged to know that there's some nice big time celebrities out there as opposed to some who are disappointing.
Yeah.
And so that's good.
Oh,
But you're a nice guy,
okay.
so maybe
So
that's why they're
yeah.
nice.
Well, no, actually, so on this, George Clooney's so nice. One time, there was the director. There were some issues. The director was talking to the some of the extras a certain way. George Clooney was so upset
Wow.
for yeah, yeah. But anyways, for the most part, most of the people I've come across are have been really nice. A lot of the celebrities. So
Yeah,
All right, Stan,
my
who's your
experience has
fave?
been the same way. Most of them have been really nice. My advice to people is if you do run into a celebrity that you admire, it's okay to let them know that you like their work and everything, but just treat them like a normal person. And chances are they're going to treat you like a normal person back. If you put them on a pedestal, you give them no choice but to kind of talk down to you. If you're like, oh my God, how can I do it? How else are they supposed to react? Where if you just treat them like you would anybody else that you meet, in my experience, most of them are just regular people who happen to be famous and have that talent that made them famous. But other than that, they're people.
yeah, they're just like us.
Well,
All right.
Anthony, I to be respectful of your time, I got a couple quick questions here at the end. We
Okay.
always end our show with a couple questions, which I think I gave you a little heads up on, but they're not tricky. They're not pass or fail. You'll do fine. But a little bit about cars. So I want to hear about your car journey because you've been in the business. But then the last question that we'll wrap with is what we call our wow question or our words of wisdom. So you have young men, young boys that you are fathering to, but what would you tell? We'll start with the cars. Stan, you want to run through the car questions?
Sure. All right, Anthony, what was your very first car?
My very first car was a Datsun 510.
All
It was a
right.
Datsun 510. Actually, no, I take that back. Before that one, I had an old Cadillac that ran for, that's probably worth quite a bit of money now. It was my Uncle Tony's old car. I ended up with it, and at some point I couldn't get it started and I had to get rid of it. And then I got a Datsun 510
Yeah.
and I drove that around for a while. That was my first car. Didn't have much
All
money,
right.
so
What has been your favorite car that you've owned?
BMW 5 Series. BMW
Okay.
Series.
And then what would be what's your fantasy car? What car would you want to have if all things being equal, you could afford it, whatever the case may be, what's your dream car?
Nice Ferrari or Lambo.
We hear
One
a
of
lot of
the two.
Ferraris on this one, so
Yeah.
cool. All right. Carl, you want to handle the words of wisdom with
Yeah,
Anthony?
sure. The words of wisdom is just kind of, and sometimes Anthony, we're talking about like even cutting these up because some of them pretty profound. Doesn't need to be a novel. It could be something real simple.
Right.
I think the gal last night said, uh, just keep going or just begin. What was hers, Stan? You remember?
No, she was saying that was a whole different kind of episode. It was a lot heavier than this one, but
Yeah.
she had said that if you see something, do something. Because she had a bunch of people that just stood around and watched her poor teenage son pass away.
Oh
They
my gosh.
all they did was videotape it. They didn't do anything to try and save him. But anyway,
That's
let's
sad.
not go back to that right now.
Yeah.
So, what would be your words of wisdom if you were talking to a young you, or maybe advising your sons? Do you have something that you want to share?
Just follow your heart, go with your gut, take a risk, keep the faith, be grounded and be thankful, especially for those around you, because if it wasn't for your close inner circle and the opportunities they've given you, you wouldn't be where you are today. And I know that for myself. And perfect example, going back to Ken Potter, if he never saw what he saw in me and gave me that opportunity, I would have never, I don't know that I would have never, but I don't know that I would have ever been able to transition into the mortgage business and then open up my brokerage. And yeah, and I took a risk, you know, myself also, and I'm still thankful to this day, you know. But yeah, just if you see an opportunity, go for it. You know, follow your heart, take a risk, and work ethically and be honest. You know, and I think that's the most important thing. So, and keep the faith.
Good stuff.
Keep the faith.
Anthony,
That's
man, it was great seeing you, buddy, and appreciate you taking time out of your busy day
My
to be
pleasure.
on
No,
our
thank you for
podcast.
having me. When you guys reached out to me, you know, when I saw that text, I'm like, wait a minute, am I the right person for this? You know, thank you. It was a
That's
pleasure.
been fun.
Well,
Yeah.
Anthony, you're a survivor and you're top of the list and nice guy. So you are proof that nice guys and hardworking guys and side hustle guys can make it in Hollywood. So hopefully that gives somebody some encouragement who's trying to make it out there or out here. And again, thank you for being on the What Drives You podcast, episode 53. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Guys, have a great Independence Day. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Happy 4th. Take care. Thank you.